Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 7 of my 2020 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Winter Dragon, Little Dragon, Car Critters Christmas add-on, Frosty Fairy Friends, just the little gift from that one, so any set with a gift would do, and the Over the Mountain Borders. So I've stamped my images out on some Neenah Solar White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. I have 2 different panels here, but I'm going to start with the one with the dragons. And for them, I'm going to use G00, G02, and G03. So I'm starting with that G03, that's going to be my darkest shade, and I'm laying in some shadow, any place on his body where I think it should go. So mainly down the back side. I also like to accentuate their little muzzle a little bit, and on the front part of his legs, since they're so rounded, and they would also cast a little shadow onto their feet. And then I'm going to blend that out with the G02, and saving quite a bit of room for the lighter shades because I wanted them to get really soft. So I'll bring in that G00 next, and just scrub in little circular motions over the edge of that G02 since there is quite a bit of difference between those shades, and try to just break up that line that you get in that transition area. I want to smooth everything out. I quickly realized that I needed another light shade because I didn't want to use the G00 for the entire rest of him, so I did bring in the G quadruple 0 and filled in all the remaining white space with that shade. So I'm going to do a double layer on him, but first I'm going to color the second dragon off screen because I wanted you guys to really be able to see the difference. When you have markers that have a wide gap between them, and I don't even think there is a G01, I could be wrong. I think the G00 though is the next step down. So when you have colors like that are, supposed to blend together, but they don't very well, a second layer is going to do you a world of good. It's going to make a huge difference. And so I really wanted to illustrate that by coloring the second layer on this first guy for you and letting you compare that to the coloring on the dragon with the scarf. So I'm just finishing him up there, and you can see how much difference there is between the two of them in that blend. Now it's still not perfect, so I'm going to show you what to do next for that. So if you have something that you just can't seem to eliminate those lines, adding a little bit of dot detail over that darkest area is going to just it's going to eliminate those lines. The viewer is not going to see them because they're going to see those cute little dots instead. So I'm just going over with the G03, my darkest shade, and adding a few tiny dots here and there in only the shadowed areas. And then I'm going to move on to my next combo, which I'm going to use for the wings and their horns and the spikes down their backs. And I picked out G14, G16, and G19, but that G19 and the G16 just barely have any difference between them. So I'm going to put away that G19. I decided I didn't like that at all. I wanted something with a lot more depth. So I pulled out the G29 instead, and you can see that one is much darker, and that's what the look I was going for. I wanted a lot of depth in the transition from the darkest to the lightest. So I'm going to continue coloring his horns and his spikes by adding just a touch of that G29 first, and then I'll blend that out with the G16 and save a tiny bit of room on each of those areas for that G14, so it has that dramatic difference between them as well. I'll color the wreath with the same combo, but be a little bit more heavy-handed with that G29 so that it looks a bit different. So my idea for this card was to create some peppermint dragons. I think it was last year that I did a peppermint unicorn, and I just loved how it turned out. And the way that my imagination works, I was just thinking there's got to be a place somewhere up on the edge of the North Pole where peppermint dragons and peppermint unicorns live. So that's what my idea was for today. I'm taking the C1 and just adding some shading down their bellies, and then also adding it to the bottom of the gift so that it can look white but just have a little bit of shading on it. And then I'm going to come in and color every other stripe on the dragon's bellies with red. Now I did have a little goof here, and you'll see me pause for a while. For some reason I was reading that hand as another stripe, so I skipped over that space, and I ended up having two red right on top of each other. So it took me a minute to figure out what I wanted to do. I decided I would try to make it a different shade of red by pulling in a darker marker. So I brought in the R59, and I'm going to do the second stripe with that. So it's just a step up from that R39, and then I'll blend out with the R39 and the R29. It's not really a big difference though, so the only way to remove red though would be to restamp and recolor the image, and I didn't want to do that. And in the final card it's going to be covered up some, so I think it's okay, but I would definitely have done every other stripe if I could have, and I'm going to do that on the other dragon. So for his stripes and also for the other stripes on the first one, I did R39 as the darkest and then R29 and blended out with the R24. So I'm also going to use that combo to color in the bow on the wreath and the bow on the gift and that little circle over on the right hand side. So that's the R39 as the darkest, and then R29, and then filling in with the R24. So I didn't use that R59 again on the card, just on that one spot on the dragon's belly. So I'm using a very simple color palette on today's card. It's just green, mint, red, and white, basically. I'll have a little bit of darker gray later on, so I guess there's a fifth shade as well, although the green and the mint are all in the green family. But sometimes I like to do that. I like to challenge myself by using a really limited color palette. It just makes me think outside the box a little bit and color things in a unique way. So I didn't want the scarf to be the exact same shade as the stripes, so I decided to go a step down. I took away the R39 and added in the R22, so it just has a bit more of a pink tone to it. And then I brought in R20 and decided to give them each a little rosy cheek. So I just did kind of an oval shape. That's something new that I've been trying lately. And then I'm going to come in with my black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and go over their eyes. And then I'm going to bring in my white Sakura Jelly Roll pen. I had a request on my channel recently for just using white gel pen to add little details, and it's not something that I do very often because, to be honest, it intimidates me. But I added a shine mark on that little red dot, and then I added some checkers on the scarf, and then I decided to also come in and add a few little white dots on the two dragons. So they're just super teeny tiny, and it almost makes them look sparkly, I think. So I do kind of like the effect it gave. So thank you for the person who suggested that I show this in a video, because it made me do something else that I don't really like to do because it makes me nervous, but it's always good to stretch yourself and try new things. In the end, it's just paper. So next I'm going to work on my second panel with the mountain range, and for my mountains I'm using C1, C3, and C5. So I'm taking that C5 and doing a little flicking motion from the bottom edge, and I don't want that ink to dry out too much before I start blending, so I'm only going to do 3 mountains at a time. Then I'll take the C3 and just work over the edge of that C5 and bring that color up a little bit higher. And I'm trying to leave the mountains that are framed on both sides by other mountains, and what I mean by that is the ones that are kind of pushed back in the background. I'm trying to make those a little bit darker. So I blended that out with the C1 right up to the snow caps, and then I will color the other three exactly the same, just doing that same flicking motion and bringing it up a little bit higher on, there's two that are really kind of pushed back and framed on both sides by a mountain in front. And those are the two that I put the deepest shadows on. So again, just blending out with that C3, making sure to really blend over the edge of the C5. I think my C3 needs a refill, so I did have to work at that a little bit. And then taking that C1 and just filling in the space right up to that mountain cap. And I will do a second layer on these, but I did that off screen just to save you some time in the video. And then for my snow, instead of doing my usual BG10, I wanted to stick to the same color palette. So I'm using my G02 right up on the top line, and then blending that out with my G00. And then I'm going to grab my colorless blender and go over the bottom edge of that just real quick. Nice little swipe is going to just soften that into the white areas. For the snow caps, I'm going to flick up from the lowest point with that G00 and then blend upward with the G00, and again take that colorless blender and just soften up the top edge. And then I will trim all of these images out with their matching dies. I'm going to take two pattern papers from the Let It Shine 6x6 pad and die cut them both using the stitched scalloped rectangle frame. So I'll take the frame from one and the inner portion from the other, and I can use the other two for a different card. I also die cut this mountain range with that same die so that it would fit in the center, and I'm stamping a sentiment at the bottom using lobster ink, and that sentiment is from the Car Critters Christmas add-on. I'm also going to add an insert into my card because my card base is a dark shade. So again, I'm stamping in lobster ink, and my sentiment and the dragon and the snowflakes are all from the Winter Dragon stamp set. So my card base is a piece of rainforest cardstock scored and folded to a standard A2 style card in the landscape orientation. So I'm going to glue my insert to the inside of that and just make sure it's right in the middle and press that down into place. Then I'll add a very thin bead of glue all the way around the outside edge of that frame, just being really careful not to add too much because it will come up through that stitching detail if you do. And so I'm going to line that up again with the edges and smooth that carefully into place so it doesn't get bent. And then I'll grab the middle portion with that teal polka dot, and I'm going to just fit that into the center and make sure that that is kind of flush with the edges. And then I've got that mountain range, and I'm going to glue that down at the bottom right over top. And because I used that die, it fits perfectly inside that space. So now I'm ready to adhere my images, and I am gluing everything down with liquid glue. So this card is going to be nice and flat and perfect for mailing. But I feel like it does have a lot of dimension just because the way that I'm layering these dragons over top of that mountain range just pushes them into the back, so you don't miss anything being popped up. It kind of has dimension in the scene already. So I'm going to add the little wreath to the hands of the dragon, and now you can see how that belly really is mostly covered up, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, I'm going to add the little gift to the hands of the flying dragon because he's the one that is coming home for Christmas. And I had this idea to give him a little glowing Rudolph nose just to be kind of silly. But it ended up being way too big. It just didn't work no matter how I tried to put it on there. It just kind of looked silly. So I'm going to figure out something else for that, and I'm going to try and see if some enamel dots will work. So I had these kind of like a soft red that I thought would match, and I decided to add the middle size to his nose, but something about it just didn't look quite right to me, just maybe because it was just so flat in regards to the rest of the coloring. It didn't have any shading on it or anything kind of dynamic to it. So I went back to my stash and found some different ones. These ones are from Doodlebug, and they have a little bit of a sparkle to them. So I'm going to peel off that enamel dot and add one of these sparkly ones instead, and I like that a lot better. So you guys let me know, do you think it looks silly? I mean, I am kind of silly, so I don't mind it, but the good thing about enamel dots is they really don't adhere that hard, so you can still kind of pull them up even days later. So, you know, if people really don't like it, I could still pull it up, but I kind of think it's cute. And like I said, it kind of fits my story with the North Pole and all of that. So I decided to add some Stardust stickles, surprise, surprise, to the bellies of the dragon and the bows on the gift and the wreath, and then also to the snow caps on the mountains and the edge of snow on the lower part of the card. So I just put it down in a line for that part and then swirled it around with the nozzle to kind of break it up so it wasn't so perfect, I guess. So that is going to complete my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my little peppermint dragons. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I post new ones every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This card is featured on the Lawn Fawn blog today, so I'll have a link to that post down below, as well as links to all of the supplies I used in case you'd like to purchase them for yourself. If you'd like to keep watching, here is day 7 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. And thank you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.